Join me, Ibrahim Dawood, every Sunday, 1 to 2 p.m. on our fight against drug abuse, where we will discuss the scourge of substance abuse in our communities and listen to the hard-hitting points from real-life experiences and true motivators.
It's happening more and more each day. These drugs making my friends crazy. I'm laying it It's happening more and more each day. These drugs making my friends crazy. I'm laying it down, don't bring it around. 'Cause I ain't nothing but drug free. It's happening more and more each day. These drugs making my friends crazy. I'm laying it down, don't bring it around. 'Cause I ain't nothing but drug free.
I used to see my buddy Fayaz looking all depressed. I guess said he was in some major tests after class. We used to go and play some ball. He was fast and tall and he surpassed us all. But after a while I seen him playing less and less. He be looking more depressed and stressed at best. So one day after class,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh on this beautiful Sunday, the 5th of April 2026, 14th of Shawwal 1447. I welcome you to join us on the Rauf show on Radio Al Ansar 90.4 FM, broadcasting every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. And remember, if you missed any of our previous programs, you can listen on Spotify under the heading The Rauf Show. Today, we have a very interesting topic, a topic that resonates with all of us in some way or the other, a topic that we find that we are heavily challenged with when it comes to dealing with, and that is dysfunctional mindset in addiction. A person in addiction, when you walk into drug addiction, it's not only the drug. To maintain the addiction, you have to cultivate a personality. Remember, when somebody gets into addiction, they start experimenting, then they start to socialize, then it becomes regular, and then eventually, it's full-blown addiction. And for that to happen, there are various stages that they would go through, and they have to cultivate a personality. Now that they have chosen the drug, they have to cultivate a personality to suit the addiction. So where you are an honest, upright, straight-thinking person, you become a dysfunctional person. So the biggest challenge is not taking the drug away. The drug is actually the smallest part of the recovery. The biggest challenge is how you change the mindset, how you make this person see things for what it is and not the way he sees it or from his perspective, but from a realistic point of view. And I have with me two guests here, our brother Zubair and our brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Rahmatullahi
It's good to have you all here with me, alhamdulillah, on this beautiful, the atmosphere is so beautiful here at the Durban Exhibition Hall. It's the what's it called? The Easter Fest.
Durban Shopping Fest.
Durban Shopping Fest, alhamdulillah. And it's so nice to be here amongst all these shoppers. It gives you a good holiday feeling. Alhamdulillah, it's good. This is a place to be on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Okay, going back to my topic, which is a very serious topic. And sometimes, a lot of us are confused. We put recovery as somebody going into a rehab, going through a detox program, listening to some workshops, listening to some talks on addiction, and maybe doing some small notes, and we say that's recovery. But you haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, because as long as you don't break that personality that the person has cultivated whilst being addicted to drugs, you are just wasting your valuable your effort and all your hard work. And I would like our two guests here to come in and give us some of the things and how, from being normal functioning people, how you went down to become that unsavory personality. I mean, the mom that had loved you with so much of care and so much of love, the mom that has the father that has done so much for you, for them to get to a point where they start to dislike you, to a point where they hate you, they don't want you anywhere near them. It's a transition for that intense love to get to a point where the mom says, I don't want you anywhere near me. What took you there? And how the personality has degenerated to a point where you became that unsavory person in your home?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my name is Muhammad. I'm from Johannesburg. 11 years in addiction. Shukar alhamdulillah. Thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rauf program and all the people in my life who have come in my life in the last 5 years. I'm now, shukar alhamdulillah, going on 5 years clean. Uncle Ibi, if I can, just everything has a starting point and an ending point. And I think for me, the starting point was very deep negative emotions in the form of hate and resentment. So I always speak about this, and I think because as any youngster is faced with choices in life, the one choice, of course, being the good choice, salah and du'as, and as a young child, obeying your parents, going to sleep on time, waking up on time, being studious at school, is all the good things. And then similarly, alongside, I was faced with all the evil things, music and movies and YouTube, and where this other life is glamorized, where you see all of these sorts of, very lit up, flowery things which appeal, unfortunately, to the nafs within us. And so the first thing that I had to do was make a choice. Do I choose the good or do I choose the evil? And I think at that point in life, as a youngster, the evil appealed to me more than the good. The lights and the music and all of that looked so much better than going to the masjid and reading salah. And then this together coupled with me growing up in a very conservative home where my parents are on 5 times salah and so on and so forth, I found it difficult now to assimilate with them.
Exactly, because you grew up in a home where the 5 times salah, with all the good values, all the right upbringing. And as a parent, your parents would have thought that I'm doing everything right. I would expect my son to do the same. But little do they realize that you got a mind of your own, and you got your own way of thinking and your own way of seeing things. And as parents, we think we've done our job. He's fine now. He's a Hafiz al-Quran. He's grew up in an Islamic home. We're not expecting any problems.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge that many youngsters face, because at the end of the day, there is so much exposure to all of these evils nowadays. When I look at children as young as 4 and 5, they are cell phone literate, so they're exposed to all the social medias, these reels and this vines and these YouTube videos, and where it's all about entertainment, and so that's where my first challenge came in. Over time, as my parents tried to instill good values, and then in Islam we reach the age where they have to force these good values upon us. So I could not become one with these good values, and so what happened was I started developing negative feelings. And I think the first step of this dysfunctional mindset is developing these negative emotions. And I think the final step of this dysfunctional mindset, which I'm sure we will come to, is narcissism. And what started off as just disliking to listen to them ended off in feelings of resentment towards them, which eventually ended off in feelings of hate towards them, deprivation, and eventually no communication. And for me, that was the first step into this dysfunctional mindset, where now I isolated myself. Those who I was supposed to love the most in life, those who looked out for me and cared for me, I isolated them. I looked at them, instead of looking at them as my father, my mother, my friend, my ally, somebody good in my life, somebody wholesome, I seen them to be my opposition, my enemy, those who don't want what's best for me. And that's where it all began for me.
So the dysfunctional thinking started from the day you decided or you found something else better than what you were getting. Definitely. In a good home, you found comfort, you found something that was more stimulating. Although it was stimulating in the wrong direction, it appealed to you, it rang a bell with you, it connected with you. And of course, it hurt your conscience because you were doing something against what you were supposed to do. And then you had to then justify what you are doing.
Yeah, the justification gets really bad. I think
that the dysfunctional mindset start from there.
See, I think that you spoke about justification now. Initially, the justification is it's very simple. You don't talk, you just ignore. I lived in my own bubble for many years. And this is prior to addiction. This is still just growing up. In my school years when I was going to Ulum, I just started living in the same house, but living, there was our lives were not intersecting, totally parallel. I used to come to the eating table, eat a meal, and go back in my bubble, in my room, on my PC, or whatever it may be. And that was the justification first. I'm in my lane, you in your lane, you stay out of my life and I stay out of your life. But I think in addiction, it reaches the point where substances, the nature of substances, and I ended up using substances like crystal meth and, and cocaine. And these substances, they have a very, very, very hectic effect on the way the mind works and on the chemical receptors in the body. And of course, when the physiology starts going offbeat, then everything linked to the physiology starts going offbeat too. So along with the changes in the chemical composition of my body, now there was changes in my emotional state. There was changes in my mental frame. I couldn't think straight anymore. And also alongside this, now my parents figured out, okay, he's up to no good.
They can see the transition from
Yes.
good to bad.
Yes, he's using substances. Now, this parallel life, living alongside each other, did not work anymore because nobody wants their son to end up in addiction. Nobody wants to live in a house with a drug addict. So they had to start playing an active role in trying to bring me back. They had to start doing what they had to do. And initially, it was just fights and arguments and, just leave me alone and stuff like
But
that.
was there no denial in the initial stages? In the initial stages, was there no denial?
I think there always is denial. I think that when I look at denial on the part of us as a family, I think that the only way I look at it, and I can explain it to our listeners out there, is that when there's hell in the house, when there's destruction in the house, on my part, when I'm running amok at home and not listening, and there is fighting and arguing. But as soon as we leave the house, going to family functions or going out to like places like the souk, this facade of being a happy family, everybody just trying to find happiness amongst the all the destruction. And it shows that within, we all were suffering as a family, but it was too difficult for us to actually know, like we didn't want the world to know what we were going into, so we could never go out and seek help.
Okay. Just whilst we are talking, I have a parent that I'd like to bring into the discussion. She happened to be shopping around, walking around. I'd like her to get involved in the discussion, maybe join us and give us her input from a parent's point of view on how dysfunctionality becomes a norm from a normal person to becoming a dysfunctional person. And I see a lot of people, very familiar faces. I'm going to start calling them one by one. I'm going to call them one by one. But anyway, I would like to introduce our anonymous mom.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay. Our topic is dysfunctional thinking and addiction. How they cultivate a dysfunctional mindset from normal people. I mean, a child would grow up with the right values, the right thinking, the right mindset. They maintain certain, as parents, we would maintain certain disciplines. And when they get into addiction, they become dysfunctional. So they cultivate a personality that becomes so unsavory that the mother that loved you doesn't want you anywhere around her.
Absolutely. I think you don't recognize them because, as Uncle Ibi says, their thought processes and their whole mindset is totally selfish. I think all they think about is when they're going to get their next fix. So it is totally dysfunctional.
And then, of course, when we see that the degeneration, or when you see the shift in the wrong direction, we would, in many cases, we would overlook it. No, it's a phase. He's a teenager now. He's behaving with that. We would overlook it, not realizing he's cultivating a personality that will be very difficult to change if you don't address it immediately.
Yes, I think so. It's important to recognize the signs. Any difference of behavior is a warning signal, and I think it's important for us to look out for those signals. We tend to just get so caught up in our lives as parents, just allow them to have the freedom, go out, give them the finances to do what they want to do because we're so busy, and we don't actually listen to our kids, which is really important, I think, in this day and age, especially with technology.
Okay, and a little bit about your experience.
Well, I definitely saw the signs, though I must say in the beginning I was in denial. I refused to accept that my son could be turning to drugs or has turned to drugs. And it was a very difficult thing for me to accept. But fortunately, I caught it in time, and yeah, with the help of Rauf, I think we've both come leaps and bounds.
Yes, I can
Absolutely,
vouch for
it's
that.
and without that support, I don't know if there's anybody else or any other recovery or any other rehab that can boast about the kind of uh, ethics and the things, the rules that we are taught at Rauf,
Mhm.
which is, it becomes a way of life with us.
Mhm.
With me, it's a way of life with my son. There are certain rules that we cannot break. And I think if we stick to that, you know, God willing,
And the thing that stops us from dealing with it is our emotions. Is my
yes,
son.
yes,
How can I do this? And then you start to, you hurt your emotions. You start to feel
get off
depressed,
you.
miserable, not in a good space because you don't know
Yes,
what to do,
yeah,
and you don't know how to deal with it,
yeah,
and your emotions start, playing up, and then you're
yeah.
sitting with a challenge, and it's a miserable experience.
Yes, it is. And then you become so embroiled in this whole emotional battle with your child that, you're not prepared to actually sit back and take a serious look at what's going on and address the situation.
Yes, and of course, many parents, when it comes to this challenge, they stuck. They stuck
Absolutely.
and they fall into a form of denial, and
Yes.
then hope and pray that it'll go away. Prayer works. It's good to have hope, but you need to have the ways and means and learn the ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that was your strength.
That was
You
my
sought
strength.
the help. You sought the
Yeah.
you found the means of dealing with it, and today you're in a good
And
space.
I think you can't take your foot off the brake. That's
Mm.
the most important thing.
Yeah.
In order for your recovery to stay clean, you've got to enforce those rules. And obviously, you have to be sensible about certain things. But I think the most important thing is to recognize it and make sure that you're consistent with your rules.
And going back to making them function like normal people, how much of a task is that?
That's not easy. You got to learn to crack the balance, which is not easy. But I think attending support groups every week for both the recovery and caregivers is imperative.
And you get your ups and downs. Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't go your way, but
No.
you need to persevere
Yeah.
because remember, you're changing a mindset.
Absolutely.
The drug is the one thing that's the easiest part. Taking the drug, anybody can do that. Put them in the rehab, detox them, and then expect them. But if you don't change that mindset, and sometimes, I mean, from your experience with your loved one that had a problem, he was clean, but how long, before that mindset could change? More or
Oh,
less,
yeah.
and some of the challenge that you probably had.
Well, look, at the moment, I can sincerely say I haven't had any serious challenges as far as that's concerned. Excuse me. But I think going to the meetings every single week is what is keeping us going. And I think, as I said, you can't take your foot off the brake. You
Exactly.
need to make sure that you are on top of your game.
Okay. So there's two components. One is the physical, and one is the physiological, and the psychological. So the thing the mental state and the emotional state. And if you don't work with them together, then you just like in most cases, we look at the chemical side, the detox, and all the things that go with it, and think that what, it's okay now, the drugs are out of his system. And a lot of parents come, and sometimes they get a call from a parent saying, can't you all detox him, just flush his system out, get the blood out of his system. But if the man has got the inclination toward the drug, how can any form of detox help? So whilst we're looking at the detox, we forget that the lifestyle has to change. The dysfunctional mindset has to change. And when you are dysfunctional, you see good as bad and bad as good. Somebody that loves you the most are the ones you hate the most. Someone that treats you badly, and the people that are destroying you, like the people who surprise that they are your best friends, they are the chiefs, they are the lanis, they are the bosses, they are the lords. Your family, that old man, that old woman getting in my way, obstructing me from doing what I want to do, making my life. So they see good as bad, bad as good, and they had that flip flop mentality. And to change that is a huge task.
It's a huge task, but all I can say is with my recovery, I'm amazed the way he has changed. He's become humble, and Rauf has just changed his whole mindset and his whole thinking because as you say, they become so selfish and so blindsided by whatever else that's good in front of them. Their good is the drug, and we are the bad ones. But with the rehab, it's amazing. I cannot tell you how much.
No, thanks. It's
has
good.
changed.
And it's good that we, and I mean, I never planned to have you here. You happen to be, and I've seen quite a few others walking around. I'm going to try and catch them to come and join me on the program. But it's good. And there's an example of a parent, and they also, they, what you call this, they mold us. They mold the parents. If for a dysfunctional person to live in a home in addiction, he has to mold the family to think like him. Whilst he's intoxicated and thinking incorrectly, the family is unintoxicated and they also start to not think like him, but they start to accept the wrongs that if he steals, it's okay, we just look the other way. If he lies, we look the other way. They will not deal with it. So in a way, he mentors the family to become like him. Otherwise, a drug addict will never survive in a home.
Well,
in
they
a normal home.
they manipulate you, and because you're in a state of fear and you don't know what's going on and how to deal with it. This is why Rauf is important, because it teaches you those, it gives you those managing tools on how to deal and recognize those signs, which are important, because the ordinary person that's not going to a recovery meeting will not know how to deal.
Exactly. And there are challenges, because if you don't deal with this dysfunctional mindset on a week by week basis in an aftercare program, then it's only a matter of time they'll go back to where they came from. They just go back, fall into a comfort zone and get back to, and they start to stagnate, regress, and then you can have a relapse. So if you don't deal with this, you really not even dealing with the problem. You're just scratching on the surface. So is there any advice that you can give to a parent that's living with addiction and thinking that the detox is all that you need to get them right?
All I can say is that your road to recovery has to become a lifestyle. You have to actually get out of that denial state, first of all, as a parent, and stop worrying about everybody else and what they are thinking. It's your son or daughter, whoever it is, that life is, it depends on their lives, and you got to decide what's more important, your child's life, or you're embarrassed about what people are going to say.
Exactly.
So you got to decide and take the bull by the horns and say, listen, this is my child and I have to do what I think is necessary.
Exactly. So take the bull by the horn and not bury your head in the ground and think that nobody can see what's happening, because addiction is something everybody can see, the parent can see, but the challenge is when the family refuse to do anything about it and they fall into a comfort zone.
But it's a lifelong commitment.
Exactly. Recovery is a lifelong. There's no cure for addiction. It's something that you manage. Okay. So thank you. Enjoy your shopping.
Thanks for having me.
I'll catch somebody else just now. We stop for an ad break and then we'll continue, inshallah.
Getting you through your day. Radio Al Ansar.
When you give water, you bring life to drought-affected communities, providing fresh water for drinking, cleaning, and growing. Your support helps Islamic Relief implement water, sanitation, and hygiene projects, providing clean water to communities around the world. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Durban, are you ready to shop till you drop? The Durban Shopping Festival is back from the 3rd to 6th of April at the Durban Exhibition Centre, bringing you 4 days of incredible shopping and unbelievable deals. And this year, it's all about the deals. Discover fashion steals, beauty must-haves, home decor, delicious food, and so much more. Whether you're a bargain hunter or treating yourself, this is where the best finds are waiting. Don't miss the shopping event everyone's going to talk about. The Durban Shopping Festival. Shop more, save more, enjoy more. Durban's greatest shopping event of the year.
Welcome to Simplex Radio. Visit our showroom for the full range of car audio. Our TV department carries top brands with quality LED panels, full HD to Ultra HD, and now the experience of Super Ultra HD. Visit our theater rooms and transform your home with brands like Onkyo, Integra, Denon, Boston Acoustics, Yamaha, and more for quality audio visual experience. Now available, full range of home appliances. A one-stop shopping experience. Call 031 306 4029 or Kenilworth Park, 202 Brickfield Road, Overport. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
Hungry for a deal that hits the spot? Get the top duo deal. 2 large margarita pizzas plus 1 topping each for $1.99. Go big or go home with the Bellissima duo deal. 2 large Bellissima pizzas for $2.69. Pure flavor perfection. And that's not all. The snack box combos are here. Your pizza boy's favorite pack to the ultimate munch box. Don't forget our daily lunch specials. Delicious, quick, and wallet friendly. Only at Pizza Boys. Taste that hits different. Pizza Boys. Bring your va-va boom to your slice of life. Find your nearest Pizza Boys near you. Pizza Boys. We don't cut corners.
Almost 1 in 5 South African children attend school each day without having eaten breakfast. This seriously affects their ability to concentrate and understand lessons. The Al Imdad Foundation's Make Breakfast Possible campaign allows learners to enjoy a high-energy cereal at the start of the school day. Help children to focus on learning and not hunger. Let's make breakfast possible today. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Getting you through your day. Radio Al Ansar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to be back. Alhamdulillah. Getting a bit carried away with all the movement around me. Okay, let's get back to our topic. We spoke about, the topic for today is dysfunctional mindset in addiction. So now I would like to cross over to our brother Zubair, and he can tell us about more or less how the changes from a good, loving, caring, obedient child, the transition from good to bad, and how it shaped your personality to becoming that undesirable person in your house through addiction.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. So when I think about it, and I've thought about it quite a bit now since I'm in recovery, because it's good to go all the way back to try and figure out where did it all start, you know. That helps in giving yourself a way forward, in identifying obviously the root of the problem. So when I look back at my life, when I go all the way back, I remember a time where I was that obedient child, you know. I was that, yes, mom, anything she says, you know, whether she told me this is what I think you should wear today, that's what I would wear. You know, as a small boy, I was very obedient, adored my elders, listened to whatever they told me. And where I see it started to change was when my ego started developing. I started entertaining my ego. My pride told me that I know better now. I knew better. All of a sudden, I knew better than mom. I knew better than uncle and everyone else. I had a mind of my own. I remember that point where it kicked in. I can clearly remember it, where I started developing a mind of my own. And I thought I knew better. And unfortunately, that paved the road to the point of where I became that person whose mom would look at him and say, you know, I wish you weren't born. Went from being her most beloved, you know, most beloved person on this world, someone that she adored, to look at me and say, you know what, I wish I didn't even give birth to you. So that obviously tells you, you know, like, one, the monster I became, and two, how dysfunctional that is, you know. And you must remember as well, I myself, Uncle Ibi, I'm an only kid, you know, so my mom has no other children to love or care for. So to take her to a point where she wanted to, she despised the day she brought me into this world. That says a lot, you know, it says a lot. And I think when I look at it clearly, it definitely was the point where I started entertaining my ego, you know. And all of a sudden, it's not about what mom wants for me or what uncle wants for me or what my teachers are telling me. It's about what I think is good for me, what I think is right, you know. So developing that mindset was very destructive for me. And coupled by obviously the classic having coming from a background where Your parents give you whatever you want, spoiling you. That coupled with that mindset that I just spoke about, just create you know, it blossomed into this monster, this mess, of a dysfunctional person that I became. So that's where it started. And you mentioned something. You mentioned the word narcissism. Um, Clearly, when I look at my situation, it became all about me. You know, even before, even before I did the drugs, you know, it became all about me. Slowly but surely, the drugs just elevated that. It took it to another level. So so all of a sudden, it's about where I want to go, what I want to do,
It's only about you.
all about me, you know, and the people around me as well allowed it to happen. Unfortunately, which is a warning to anyone listening out there who's a caregiver, is that it can't be like that, because you're cultivating this wrong mindset. You're telling a person who already has an ego problem that it's okay, yeah, it's all about you. That's the worst thing you can do for them. A person like me and a person like that needs to understand that the world doesn't revolve around them. The world, life needs to be lived on life's terms, not on your terms, not on what you want all the time. And that also leads to other problems. You know, you become a person who cannot deal with minor setbacks and disappointments, because your expectations are that things must always go your way. You know, and I'm speaking from personal experience. That's the point that it reached, that things must always go my way. If it doesn't go my way, a big problem. Start throwing my toys out the cot, go and use all these terrible things just to show that, you know, throw a tantrum because I didn't get my way. So unfortunately, for the people around me, they were living with someone who was so absorbed in themselves and their desires that everything that every all their best interests were put aside based on, and what I wanted was put first, whether they liked it or not. Because at some point, when even when they realize, okay, hold on, there's a problem here, it was too late. Because now, if they don't see to me, their lives are being held back, you know, because I'm absolutely running amok, and I'm destroying everything in my path. So they have to put everything on hold. Can't go on holiday, can't do up the house, can't do this, can't do that, can't leave him alone. You know, it all whether they liked it or not, even when they realized that it's a problem, they could not put the brakes on. So even now, if I look at it, Uncle Ibi, I must be honest, I'm in recovery, but still, my parents have to sacrifice a Friday night, come to a program. Why? Because of the choices that I made in their life. A lovely night that they can spend at home with their family, put their feet up. They have to sacrifice now
Yeah, but
because
what is the sacrifice that they are making? What are they trying to achieve? They being there every week. What is the objective? What is it that they want? You clean from the drug. You're not on the drug anymore. So what are they guarding you against?
basically, the way I see it, it's they are building us. They they are forming part of a support structure. They realized at some point that, you know what, this is out of our hands, in the sense of we cannot deal with this problem alone. It's the same for the addict. For me, for many years, I thought, okay, you know what, I can handle this by myself, but I was lying to myself. That's classic denial, not knowing that my problem is bigger than me.
So basically, they are guarding you from going back to your old habits, and it normally starts off with a mindset. And if you have a dysfunctional mindset, then obviously to do the wrong thing is very easy. To do the right thing, when you're dysfunctional, you're guided by your feelings. You know, a dysfunctional person, generally, not everybody, but generally in addiction, they're guided by their feelings. How you feel is that what you do, and that's what you would say, and that's how you will act. But in a normal functioning person, he's guided by his good senses. He knows, he rationalizes, he looks at the situation, he weighs the situation, and then he acts upon it. But a dysfunctional person is somebody that will act without even thinking of consequences is totally irrational. There's no sense of responsibility. There's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of understanding that what I'm doing is not right, and how other people feel about my choices that I've made in life, and how it's going to impact on other people. A dysfunctional purpose, a person is like what Zubair had just mentioned now, only about you and the way you feel and the way you want to be. And nobody must tell you how to change. If anybody tells you, you know what, this is not right, then the person is seen as wrong. And even in a home environment, in a normal home environment, sometimes your child could do something wrong. And if you don't address it, like if you look at abuse of the cell phone, you know, just abusing a cell phone. If we as parents try and justify or we look the other way, then we're actually cultivating a dysfunctional personality. So we have to see it and deal with it appropriately. Parents need to be informed. They need to see what's normal and what is abnormal and try and maintain normality in house and not feed abnormal behavior.
Uncle, if I can just come in here, the only reason why everything becomes dysfunctional in a home of addiction is because at the end of the day, the only time you can apply rationality and apply your intelligence and think and make guided decisions through your mind is when there is contentment and peace and understanding. But unfortunately, with addiction, the addict's mind is already warped because of the chemical imbalances, because of the drugs and the selfishness. And then on the other side of the spectrum, the family, unfortunately, are going through so much mental, emotional damage. There's so much pain, so much, there's depression, there's anger, there's fear, that it's impossible for them to also think logically and rationally because I think my own parents' decisions were mostly based on how to find this peace. Must we put him in the corner? Must we get him out of the house? Must we? What do we do? What do we do? How do we find peace? So it was
They
always
cannot function because they are all disorientated. They're under so much of pressure. The emotions are playing up.
always
The,
emotionally charged.
all the different emotions they're going through, and then at the same time try and deal with somebody that's in their face all the time, behaving in a manner that is totally unacceptable. So they have to deal with the current and the past and the future, and it becomes one hell of a. That is why you need extra help. You need outside help. You need someone to come in or talk to people who understand it or know how to deal with it. Otherwise, you're going to deal with it all by yourself. You're going to burn out. And eventually, you surrender to the problem.
Definitely.
It becomes a norm having someone being dysfunctional, being vulgar, being disrespectful, doing as they please, walking into the house intoxicated, breaking things when they feel like, and it becomes normal. Although you don't like it, you have to live with it because you don't know how to deal with it.
Yes, and that's the I think that's the height of the dysfunctionality within the home. But it's only for so long that this problem can be contained in the home, because eventually, caregiver, parent is such where they reach the point where okay, they surrender now. Okay, I can't do this. I tried 5 years, 7 years, some take 10 years. In my case, I was in addiction for 11 years. Maybe from the 11 years, 6 or 7 years of that period was filled with abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and there was a lot of fighting and lots of dysfunctional behaviors in the household. And it took 7 years for them to reach the point where, or maybe 6 years, where they realized they need to get help. And then they started putting our challenges out in public, that this is the reality of our house. And what happened is, as an addict, now I needed to prove to the world that they're wrong and I'm right, because I feel like I'm doing harm to only myself. I'm not using their money. I'm not using their resources, and so I'm only harming myself. And on the other hand, they are telling and on the other hand, they are telling the world that this is what we're going through at home. And so now the problem becomes comes out into public. Should I let him sit here?
No, no. Okay, we have a quick break. Let's bring in our guest, one of our brother recoveries from Johannesburg, who's sitting in our Johannesburg support group, that's walking around, shopping around. Like I said, there's quite a few of our wonderful recoveries out here. With their families. Good to see them back with their families. Good to see them happy with their families. Good to see them coming all the way from Joburg to this wonderful gathering out here. It's a nice shopping fest. It must be very exciting for you all to leave Johannesburg and come. How's it, Divesh?
Hi, Uncle Ibi. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How clean? How long are you clean now?
It's now 4.5 years.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to the grace of God.
Thank you.
And to Rauf.
Yes. It's good to see you after. I do see you when I go to the Johannesburg support group, and it's nice to see that your wife is here. Our topic is dysfunctional thinking in addiction. How people in addiction become dysfunctional, and maybe your wife can come in and give us how she had to deal with a dysfunctional from a normal person, to become a dysfunctional person. What was your challenges? Because when you married him, he was a normal person. Am I right? And then when he got into addiction, he became a dysfunctional person.
Yes, you're right, Uncle Ibi. How I dealt with it, I didn't until we joined Rauf. I didn't deal with
So
it.
what
because
was
I
the
didn't
normal?
have-
Tell me the normal person before he became dysfunctional.
The normal person was a family-orientated person, somebody that was there, like not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. He was there. There was no how can I say? When he was in active addiction, you could never have a normal conversation.
So the normal
with him.
person was a family-orientated,
Yes.
wonderful husband.
Yes.
And then a person, when he got into addiction,
He was a totally different person. It wasn't the person.
give us
that I go to.
examples. What type of person he was?
Okay, he was aggressive. Okay, not physically, but he just used to like lash out for everything. And then also, you would just stay into space for hours, and you can't actually explain it. My daughter used to think he just has running stomach forever because he'd be in the toilet for hours, but we knew what he was doing.
Okay. So lies, stealing,
Stealing,
manipulation.
yes, not being able to keep jobs, not being able to hold relationships, hiding from people constantly. It was like constantly making excuses for his behavior.
Okay. So this is what we're talking about, dysfunctional. And addiction, that's the main issue. When it comes to dealing with addiction, we talk about detox. Detox is really, in many cases, not even necessary. It's the personality, that dysfunctional person, to bring him back to a normal person.
Yes.
How far do you think is now from getting back to the normal husband that you had?
Well, they say once you start the drug, that's when you stop growing. So he started the drug. Okay, now if we don't count the clean years, we count in the addiction years. So for 10 years, he stopped growing. So now he's growing. Now he's growing, and now he's becoming the person that he's meant to be, not the person that the drug made him. He's becoming. He's actually a father now. He's a father and a husband.
Oh, that's so great to hear. It's good to hear that. And it's nice. It's always a pleasure seeing the fruits of your labor. It's always nice to see our people that are doing well out there. And there are lots of people, they would, if they cannot deal with addiction, they surrender to it. Families will surrender to it. They will fall into this thing and they think this is a way of life. But it's not normal to live like that.
Yes, definitely.
When did you realize that?
I realized that on New Year's Eve 2021, my son was just 8 months old, and Divesh he went on a spree, and that was the day I closed the door on him, and I said, if you don't get help, then cut me out. You know what? I was not able to leave him, but I begged him. I was like, you know what? You leave me, because this is not the life I want for my children. A son, a daughter follows her mom, but a son follows his dad. And I didn't want that for my child anymore.
Yes. So, and the transition, he's 4 years clean. So the dysfunctional thinking, did that change happen suddenly, or was it took a while to get back to a normal functioning person?
Okay. While he was at Rauf, obviously he was in the bubble, the bubble of protection. And then when he came out, that's when the real challenge started. So it was as much as it was him reintegrating into society, it was us learning how to live with this new person. Because the person that we knew for 10 years was only a drug addict. And
Yes.
then this was a recovering addict. So it took him some time, and it also took me some time. Like, trust can never be rebuilt perfectly. But it took me a lot of time to actually give him just a little bit of trust, just to say that, you know what, okay, he's fine, he's doing okay. But still now the guard is always up.
So you are ready for him if you decide to slide.
Ready.
Oh,
Ready,
that's
ready.
good. So now you're an empowered spouse. You're empowered. You understand his mindset. You have been. You are ready for any eventuality because you've been empowered through the programs. And you know when the dysfunctional mindset starts, when he starts. Okay, what would you watch out for if if there's trouble coming in his recovery?
First is the attitude. The attitude.
Attitude.
Yes.
Becoming dysfunctional again.
Yes. The
Okay.
attitude, the eating habits, the sleeping habits, the prayer. Okay, first and foremost is prayer. Because the minute he's not praying anymore, that means that something is not right. Because everything starts with prayer.
That's good. So I must thank you for giving us your time. It's nice that you are here. It's nice to see you all after all these years, looking happy and bright. It's good. Keep it up. We hope and pray that you'll grow. I've seen quite a few of our recoveries, with the families walking past, but I thought that you all be the perfect people for this discussion. So thanks. Enjoy your shopping. I don't
Thank
want
you,
to
Uncle
take you
Ibi.
away from your shopping. Please spend as much as you can. And, keep us in mind if you find anything good.
And I just want to say to Rauf, thank you, because
It's a pleasure.
what we couldn't accomplish, Rauf accomplished. And look at Divesh today.
Thank you. That's what you want to hear. These are not planned things. These things happen as the ball is rolling. It's a absolutely clear thing where we're not pre-planning these things. It happens, and of course, our brother Divesh is on his way. Enjoy your weekend. What's left of your weekend? I'll see you soon in Johannesburg. Okay, going back to our topic of dysfunctional thinking. Let's give examples. Let's give examples of what a dysfunctional person, what is, for some people who may not understand or may grapple with this thing about being, what is a dysfunctional person. Maybe you should give some examples of that so that a person, a parent, who's not empowered will be able to see it. Because when we only put emphasis stop him from taking the drug, but the drug is only the cherry on the top. It's that whole personality that allows him to maintain his addiction and prevents him from finding sobriety. Give us some examples. I'll leave the floor open to both of you. Give us some examples of a dysfunctional person.
Okay. I would think the first thing that comes to mind is hurting the people who would do anything for you. Not valuing someone who would literally
Hurting the people that love you the most, not valuing all the love and all that they've done for you.
that is completely dysfunctional, because a normal person would see, hey, this is a person who
And they'll
died for me,
appreciate.
and they would hold on to that person. This is someone who would bend over backwards for me. I'm going to do the same for them. That's a normal person to me. But me, those are the people that I absolutely. I remember hearing things like, you're burying me alive. You're putting me in my grave, but I'm still alive. And it's things like that that tell me that I was so far from normal. Also the dysfunctionality. They mentioned something that I can relate to. The lady who just spoke now is not being able to hold a job. A job is a source of income. When I see normal people, they take their jobs very seriously, because it's a means of uplifting themselves in their life, building a future for themselves, providing for their families. But me, I took it on my own terms. If I didn't feel like going to work on a Monday, I didn't go.
Totally irresponsible.
is-
But this is how we behave in addiction. The normal seems abnormal and abnormal seems normal. We have we don't see things for what it is.
Uncle Ibi, it's crazy. Even now, when I go home on integration, I remember the times where, because obviously I can't work at the moment and I'm still in the program and stuff. It's not my time yet. So I'm standing in my room, and maybe I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing people out and about working and stuff. And I remember times where I was sitting in my room doing drugs, and I was watching everyone on a Monday or a Tuesday, a working day, going about working. I'm just not going to work because I'd rather do.
You just feel like drugging, and you just feel like because you don't want to feel like
Just
going to work, you
because.
don't go to work.
And even worse is not even calling to say, Marv, I can't come in. Not even making an excuse. Not even lying. Not even bothering to lie, to call. Not even bothering to answer the call when they would call. I would watch the call ring and be like, oh no, I'm not gonna answer. Just don't pitch up. Don't give any excuse. Nothing. Don't even return to work because you just say, oh, okay, well, I can't go back now. That's absolutely dysfunctional. That's who I am.
Exactly. Okay, very, very quickly, we're coming to the end of our program. Mohammed Binti, tell us about some of examples of dysfunctional thinking in addiction that you've experienced or that you've maintained in your addiction.
I think the biggest dysfunctionality came when I took on my family in a public sphere. So whereas as a family you look out for each other and you understand your role as a son, I started looking down upon my own family and I started taking them on in the public sphere. So whereas they were trying to get help for me and get the message across to those who could help that this is the problem in our house. He's an addict, he's using, and we can't deal with him anymore. There's abuse, there is emotional abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's a lot of fighting and arguing. I used to go to the same responsible, respectful individuals in my community, and I did it publicly on WhatsApp statuses where I made my own mother and father bad. And that was the point which I took it.
Okay, we've come to the end of our program. We can go on talking about a very interesting topic, and I think it's very important because our understanding of, in most cases, our understanding of it, recovery is put him in a rehab, detox him, and then live happily ever after. It doesn't work like that until you don't change that personality. And to change a personality is a lifelong job. And to maintain it, of course, your family needs to be empowered in how to maintain it. And the recovery needs to know exactly where his weaknesses are and identify it so that they can rectify it. If you cannot identify, the rectification becomes a problem. And whilst we may relate this issue to addiction, it happens in a normal functioning person where they become dysfunctional if we are not stimulated. If you don't stimulate our minds to think correctly and act correctly, then eventually we will degenerate. We will start sliding back into becoming dysfunctional people. So and it leads to narcissistic behavior, and you find this in marriages as well. The one person is always right, the other one is always wrong. There's no balance in a relationship, and that can also create problem in a normal environment where there's a narcissistic person. I've come to the end of my program. I'm your host. I'd like to thank our two gentlemen here. Enjoy your shopping whilst you are shopping. Until next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
31, 32.